Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome to the Business Innovators Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Brown. My guest today is a repeat guest, thanks to feedback we received about his visit here last year, and of course, his very important message. And frankly, I can never get enough of talking with my friend, Tim Ringgold. In fact, we just spent about an hour and a half talking before we ever decided to do the podcast today. Tim is a board-certified music therapist in Orange County, California, and director at Sonic Divinity, LLC. For more than 10 years, he's been providing music therapy to thousands of teens and adults in residential treatment. He is a sought-after speaker, having shared the stage with some of the top minds on the subject of music and the brain. And most recently, just a couple of weeks ago, shared the virtual stage with none other than Tony Robbins. Tim is author of the book, Sonic Recovery, Harness the Power of Music to Stay Sober, and is host of the podcast, Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold, which just launched, or as the kids say, dropped earlier this week. It's part of a huge mission for Tim that he's going to tell us about here in just a second. Tim, welcome to the program. Great to have you back again.
Thanks for having me back, Rick. It's great to be here.
You bet. So we talked several months ago, it was last year sometime, and we learned a little bit about what you do with music therapy and how that helps people. But you've been a little bit busy here over the last few months since we last spoke. Why don't you catch us up on what's going on?
Sure. It all started, I'm standing in Chicago O'Hare Airport on a Monday afternoon. It's about 12:30. It's March 9th or 10th, that Monday of that week. And O'Hare is empty. And I'm flying to DC to speak at a conference like I usually do. And that little gut feeling you have, like there's something wrong here, went off. And so I spent a couple of days in DC, empty hotel, empty airport there, empty planes, Houston International, empty. And that's when I caught the fear of COVID-19. And I think there's two categories with this. There's the actual disease, and then there's the fear of it. And I know exactly what happened. I went out for dinner. I went for dessert. I went for Starbucks. I came home. I didn't wash my hands before I dug to China in my eye to scratch an itch. And just that day, I was in the airport watching a PSA about making sure that you don't put your hands in your nose or your mouth or your eyes, because that's how you get the disease. And there I was Monday night, finger in eye, scratching, convinced I gave myself COVID-19. And the anxiety I had, Rick, I couldn't sleep. I was so stressed out because everybody had said, this is a disease that's way more communicable, and the lethality rate is like order of magnitude higher than any of its cousins in the coronavirus family. And I'm a healthcare worker. So here's something everyone should know about healthcare workers. We're trained to overreact to germs. That's a public safety issue. Like, we have to be more vigilant than everybody else because we come in physical contact with the marginalized, with the sick, with people whose immune systems are compromised. So we have to be like way on top of our game. So we're taught to fear germs way more than anybody else. And that's to keep people healthy. So when a healthcare worker learns about COVID-19, that's like putting the fear of God into them, because this is like a super bug that we've heard about. And so there I am now as a healthcare worker, convinced, really stressed out. And I come home from the trip and I'm like, I can't leave my house for the next 2 weeks. I'm in lockdown. I'm in personal quarantine now because I probably came in contact with it in one of the, 4 airports, 4 airplanes, hotel. And so I'm in lockdown. And I'm burying my head in the sand because I'm just so scared, because we're getting all this stuff in from all around the world. The soccer leagues in Europe are shutting down. The countries are shutting down. And then, do you remember the viral video from Italy when people were singing from their balconies?
Yeah, very cool.
It was really sweet, right? So someone tags me in it on Facebook and says, Tim, the world needs to hear from you right now. No pressure. What? Like, so I did what any good, superhero would do. And I promptly buried my head in the sand over the weekend. And I said, I'll come out the other end, maybe on Monday, and I'll solve this problem Monday.
Dude, legitimate reactions though, I think, right?
Honest, like, let's hide. And I wrote something about the fear of COVID-19 on Facebook because I was going through it. And I was telling people, hey, listen, be careful you don't catch the fear before you catch the disease. And someone just flamed me and said, why don't you talk less and play a little more? And I was like, ooh. And it was a good reminder that I was a musician first. Sunday night, I picked up my guitar in my garage. And for some reason, I just had a thought. I'm just going to go on Facebook Live. I'm going to take my loop pedal and my acoustic guitar. I'm going to arrange something peaceful. And I just called it Something to Comfort You. And it was pretty cool. I was pretty happy with it. It was an old piece of music that I rearranged using the loop pedal on the fly. And I was like, that was fun. And so I did it the next night and the next night. And I did it every night for 40 days. And I just would put whatever the day was, Something to Comfort You, day 37. And what happened was people started to set their notifications on Facebook to when I'd go live. And on the East Coast, they'd fall asleep to my music. And on the West Coast, they'd cook to it. And I had no idea that this would take off. But in the back of my mind the whole time, Rick, I'm thinking about my peeps, my colleagues. What are they doing? Because they're essential workers. So as the lockdown starts to spread, the essential workers have to go to work, right?
Yeah, we've seen the videos of them just being overwhelmed.
Yeah, and they're already stressed. And then you put them in this environment where there's a super bug, but don't get it yourself. And there's a super bug, and don't bring it home to your family. And there's a super bug. So you need to go to work while your kids can't go to school. So someone else is going to have to teach them while you're at work. And there's summer camps. No, there's no summer camps for your kids. You guys still have to go to work, but like what you're going to do with your kids over the summer, good luck. So healthcare workers are in a particular bind right now. And I don't think people truly understand it and that's why I tried to tell that story about the training we go under, because we see the world a little bit differently than others. And that's part of our training. So I'm like, what can I do for them? How do I, and I'm in a coaching call and my coach is like, what are you doing to pivot right now? And I was like, I don't know with my business, man. All I want to do is just all these Facebook Lives. I got 20 hours, 20 songs. I just want to make like 2 records and just donate them to healthcare workers around the world. That's what I want to do. And people immediately were like, I'll help. And I'll help you with this and that and the other thing. And I was like, I don't want to record 2 records. It'll be August before I can help out my people. So then my wife says to me, she goes, why don't we just make a podcast and we'll release the songs as episodes once a week? And I thought, I could pull that off.
Because that's easier for you. That's less time consuming, right? You don't have to get studio time and all of that.
Well, if you think about it, it's the same amount of time overall, but the delivery system of a podcast, I can deliver new music weekly, a little at a time, like a drip system, and I can get it in their ears now, as opposed to in August, where I could give them, hours and hours at once, or maybe I could just give them 10, 15, 20 minutes now, every week. Now, to relax the nervous system with music, a 5-minute segment of music will do that. So all I need to do is record anything at a slow tempo that is instrumental and it's arranged in a certain way. And it can be 5, 10, 15 minutes long, any amount of that time. Someone listens to that and focuses on that, their nervous system will reset. So I was like, I can do this. So the idea was, so for healthcare workers, they have to commute into work. So they're going to listen to this podcast on their commute. And it's going to relax their nervous system as they're going in so that they can show up powerfully for the people they serve. But then they listen to it on the commute home. And then it turns off the stress response a second time. And now they can show up peacefully for the people they love. And that's the whole vision of the podcast right there.
So Reduce Your Stress is the name of the podcast.
Yep.
Where is it available?
Wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're an Apple person, go into your podcast app and just type in Reduce Your Stress and you'll see me playing my guitar. And if you're on Spotify, you can find it there. And if you're anywhere else, you should be on Apple or Spotify. Oh, but no, it goes out to like, almost every platform out there.
So how are you getting this information out to those people that you're trying to reach, the healthcare workers that you're trying to help?
Well, because I have worked in the hospital and a lot of my colleagues as music therapists work in hospitals around the country. And I speak at conferences, medical conferences. So I just network with a lot of people in the healthcare space. We've created an infographic that we are sharing with the HR departments and the employee wellness department specifically, because they are scrambling for free resources right now for mental health. And so this is a win for whoever refers it to HR. It's a win for HR and it's a win for the employees. So that's been the real strategy.
So let's talk a little bit more about the music you're creating. So I have caught your Facebook Lives.
Yeah.
Right? Very, very cool. I think I caught your very first one, in fact. And so this looping process for folks who don't know really what that is, and I really want to see, am I really a music guy? Can I explain this properly? So the loop, so you play a chord or whatever, a set of chords, and this loop machine records it. So then it will loop what it just recorded. If you recorded 10 seconds worth of playing the guitar, it'll record that. You play that back, and then you start playing something just a little bit different that will fall into what was just recorded. I'm lousy at this. Explain it.
No, that was pretty good.
Yeah?
That's pretty good. Yeah. So it's just layers of audio.
Layers.
And it's like when you look at a painting is painted a brushstroke at a time, and you layer the brushstrokes into a picture. These pieces of music are created exactly the same way, and each loop is a brushstroke. And so there's 10, 15 different layers of guitar that I'm, tastefully, putting in different places as a songwriter and as a composer, understanding you're going to need some rhythm, you need some bass, you need some chords, you need some melody, you need some harmony. And everyone's different. So you don't know with each one, what order am I going to paint this painting? Am I going to paint with the percussion first, or the melody first, or the chords first, or the bass line first? And so you have to kind of follow the trail. And so the song kind of reveals itself loop by loop. And by 10 minutes in, we're miles away from where we started. And it's weird because you don't really notice time the same way. And you can speak to this as you watched it and listened to it. Right. It just kind of unfolds.
It does. And it kind of takes you to a new place each time a new loop comes in. By the end of this thing, it sounds like you've got, just about a full band in there. It's just one guy playing guitar.
Yeah, that's the whole idea, is to create a complete, sonic sandwich. Nice. So, your ears are really happy. So, you've got this low end that's kind of grounding it. You've got some sort of pulse there that keeps it, in order. And then you've got this harmony that's keeping like the meat of it right in the middle of it. But then you've got some sort of lilting melodic, material over the top that, I might harmonize with, I might not. And it should sound like a group of guitarists in a circle, like an ensemble by the time it's done.
It's very cool music, and I encourage everybody to check it out.
Thanks.
The podcast, I think you've got 4 episodes in there right now, and you just picked it up like this week. I think you debuted the podcast, right? It's
gone great. We launched Tuesday, and within 48 hours, we had over 50 reviews. People are just loving it. It's just taken off. So it's been great.
How did you get into music, Tim?
Well, my first solo I sang, I was 4. Like I just right out of the gate, I got a big mouth, and I've had it since I came out screaming. And And by the time I'm 16, I'm singing for the Pope in St. Peter's Square, singing a solo. And as a Catholic, that was like a big deal. That's like highest use. I was like, I'm going to heaven for sure now. And so my parents were pretty happy about that too. But it wasn't until I was like 22 that I really, like, the full power of music was revealed to me. And it hit me right between the eyes, like right in the teeth, because my 5 best friends were murdered. And to try to put that in context, Rick, I went to 5 funerals in 4 days. So I'd get up, bury a friend, get as hammered as possible, pass out, and then wake up and have to do the whole thing over again the next day and the next day and 2 on Sunday.
Dude, that's horrible.
It's just Groundhog's Day from hell. And every funeral, I sang a song that I'd written for my friends, and I used to play it for them at the bars, and we'd cry over it. And that was my way of saying goodbye. And my community just thanked me so much. It just healed the community. They wrote about it, but it tore me up to play it. And the night of the last funeral, I went to a show because one of my remaining friends was like, "You want to go see some music?" I was like, "Oh, hell yeah." So we go to a show. And for the first 2 hours since I got the news, I found peace. And
lost in the music.
Yeah. And no amount of drugs, weed, like, I smoked, snorted, drank, watched cable TV, watched porn, like everything I could do to try to numb my brain. Because that's what we do as humans. When we're really stressed or traumatized, like, we try to numb the pain we're experiencing. It's a normal reaction. It's the way the brain's designed. So I was just doing what everybody else does. And, but unfortunately nothing worked. And I would like stack everything on top of each other. It was really risky, but I was just trying to kill the pain. And if you're listening to my voice right now, you know this, like, you've had experiences in your life that were really intense. And like, you just were like, I can't even handle the pain. And you might not have even thought of it as pain, but emotional pain, social pain, spiritual pain, physical pain, they're all the same thing. They stress the brain out. And the brain just wants relief. So I reached for everything I could. Nothing worked. I reached for music. It works. And when I'm sitting there in the stands, like in the audience, it dawns on me, Rick, this is exactly what my community was feeling when I played for them. And it was like the circle was complete. Like, my purpose revealed right there. So like, since 1995, I just dedicated my life to helping others reach for music in their toughest times.
But you were also not just were, but still are. But in those early days, you were focused on being an entertainer.
Yeah, that was the only way I knew.
Right?
Yeah, when I was growing up looking at the music industry, it was like you could be a opera singer or a musical theater or a music teacher, and none of those were me. So the only respectable decision I could think of was to become a guitarist in a heavy metal band.
Of course.
I mean, that's obvious, right? That's the first, and my parents are so proud, right? Oh my God, Timmy. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this. I'm going to be a rock star. And I moved to Phoenix, started a band. It was insane. You've seen photos. I wore liquid latex on stage.
Pretty cool, I got to say.
Well, thank you. But, the thing about it that was important, Rick, was that I understood that even, the guitarist who healed me was still also just a gigging guitarist entertainer. So I knew that even entertainment, like as a context, could still heal somebody in their toughest hour. And sure enough, after a show, one kid comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, bro, I just wanted to say you saved my life." I'm like, "Well, what?" And he's like, "Well, you haven't seen me in a while, right?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Well, I got hooked on meth, which a lot of kids did back in the day." And he goes, "It got really bad. I got suicidal. I was in my room. I was going to kill myself. And your CD came on. And I just thought of you. And I thought of like how sad and disappointed you'd be in me if I did it. So I didn't. And then I didn't get that bad ever again. And then I got into rehab and I got clean and now I'm better. So just want to say thanks." And that's like, I was like, what reaches into a teen's bedroom when they're feeling alone and suicidal? It actually wasn't music. That's not it. It was the connection the music created. And I knew that, music connects us to something outside of ourselves. It relieves the pressure, if you will, and we feel connected. And that's so important for humans, to feel connected to something else. And so I had that connection with this guitarist. I had that connection with my community. This kid had that connection with me. So I think music and connection are that's what it's all about. And from a brain perspective, when you listen to music you enjoy, your stress response turns off. Your nervous system shifts gears when you listen to the music you enjoy. And you know this, everybody who's felt stressed, felt sad, felt angry, felt upset, and then their favorite song comes on, it's not even an hour after therapy. It's instantaneous. You notice the shift, but before the song's over.
Yeah, to me, you go right back to the place that song reminds you of.
That's right. That's right.
The person that it reminds you of.
Yeah, whatever that connection is, whether it's you to the band and a concert, it's you to a moment in time with someone else, it's you to a moment in time where it was just you and the record, you alone in your room, feeling the discovery of this music. Wow, the first time I heard Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon in headphones as a teenager in my room, it was one of the most wonderful sonic journeys I'd ever taken in my life. And I can tell you, just saying that right now, I can see the shag carpet.
Yeah.
Because I'm there, right there. Wow.
You said before that you kind of described that in that kids listening to music alone in their room have more of a connection than downstairs with the family.
Yeah, right? Man, because the music it just accepts them. It's not upset that they feel sad or feel depressed or feel suicidal. The music doesn't scold them. It doesn't lecture them. And it doesn't stop if the kid can't keep the beat or remember the lyric or hit the high note when they're trying to, engage with. The music accepts us. This is something people don't really think about, but music accepts you emotionally, physically, exactly where you are, the way you are, and just plays for you. Nothing else does that. Parents don't do that. Parents are as conditional and they take things personally. They can't help it. And so at some point the kid's I'm just trying to express what's going on for me, which means just get out. Just trying to get these emotions out of my body. I'm just feeling them. Nobody likes to feel emotions. They're weird. And I can't go to my parents anymore because every time I do, they get upset. And so I don't want to upset them and I don't want to listen to them. So I'm here in my room. I feel great in my room. This band, these are my lyrics. This is my people. If you're listening to my voice right now, you have heard your story in someone else's lyrics.
Absolutely.
Powerful. Right. So I was all in on that. I'll do this as an entertainer because I know if I keep my eye on why I'm doing it, it'll work. But unfortunately, the music industry is not the most sustainable career from a spiritual or healthy or financial perspective. And they say sex, drugs, and rock and roll in that order for a reason. So many years, into my music journey, I got lost, too much sex, too much drugs. And that was no longer going to be sustainable in my life. And so I found myself in a meeting, a 12-step room, and that turned the corner. And then within months, it was oh, I want to get married because the woman's she's standing by me through this. And we're looking at our future. And I'm I don't want to spend the rest of my life in this unhealthy, financially productive lifestyle of being in heavy metal music. And I discovered the field of music therapy just by searching A to Z, an index of majors at my local college. And I ran into the two words music therapy. And I read the description and I instantly filled out the application and the FAFSA. And I literally never looked back.
That's crazy. Divine intervention.
Totally.
Yeah. I think we've talked about this before. Even if somebody doesn't necessarily feel or recognize they're in a stressful situation or experiencing stress in some way, especially during a crisis, during COVID, yeah, I'm fine. I'm getting through it. Okay. Does this still work? Is music still a therapy at that point, or is it just something they've got on in the background? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, first of all, we got to cut through a little bit of the Nile. The Nile is not just a river in Egypt, because I'm at Target picking up my groceries a couple of weeks ago, and I'm in the checkout aisle, and instead of trashy magazines and like bad junk food, they had Sky Vodka and Cuervo Gold.
Wow.
No joke, on the end cap.
And it wasn't full either, was it?
And I looked at the guy and I was like, bro, where'd the trashy magazines go? That's always fun to read. He's like, he looks at me and Rick, this is what he says. You know, the only thing we've sold more than toilet paper? Alcohol. Yeah. Alcohol sales are up 155%. Great. 155%. That's more than double. So the stressed brain craves, my friends. That's the design of the nervous system. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not weak. You don't have poor moral fiber. The way your brain works is when you are stressed, it issues a craving to relieve that stress. And it doesn't really matter. It doesn't think about what's good for you, bad for you, healthy, unhealthy, safe, unsafe, legal, illegal. It just thinks what scratches the itch in the moment. And so we reach for food. We reach for beer, wine, or worse. We reach for screens. We reach for porn. That's the great unspoken one. Nobody talks about because of the shame around porn. I'm in recovery for sex addiction, and porn's my kryptonite. It's like the thing nobody wants to talk about, except the porn websites are growing exponentially. As we're talking about alcohol going up by 155%. Porn usage is going up by thousands of percent. Wow. It's out of hand. And the average onset is age 10.
What?
It's so much worse than everybody wants to say. Nobody's going near it with a 10-foot pole. It's so bad. Why are they looking at it? Because the brain on porn is the same as the brain on cocaine. It releases a massive dopamine release, which is a pleasure chemical in the brain. So it hijacks the brain. So the only reason I went off on this is that we live in a culture of consumerism where everybody's consuming things to upregulate or downregulate their nervous system. You get up and you drink coffee to upregulate your nervous system. You go to a convenience store and they sell sugar, nicotine, and caffeine by the thousands because those upregulate, and alcohol, which downregulates your nervous system. So we are all medicating our nervous system all day long in this country. So it's a fool's errand to think that, this isn't worse than it is. But you don't have to call yourself an addict. You just know. Like, if you ask any person on the street, what do you reach for when you get stressed? Without any shame, they'll be like, oh, coffee, or food, or Netflix.
Glass of wine.
Oh, the mommy juice. There's a culture now of mommy juice where wine is culturally acceptable and among moms with school-age kids. There was no nickname mommy juice when I was a kid. That was not a nickname for wine. So it's prevalent. And so it's important for people to understand, hey, your nervous system has you reach for stuff when you get stressed. So here's the deal. When you reach for music, it also turns off the stress response, but it costs way less. There's no unhealthy side effects. You save time, you save money, you save connections, and it's a much healthier alternative because it issues the same pleasure response and it turns off the same stress response at the same time. The thing with adults, Rick, is we forget about how good music used to feel when we were teens, when we become adults. In the United States, only like 4 to 6% of adults play a musical instrument in a 12-month period. That is a giant drop from teens. And we just get busy with family and career, and we just stop listening to radio because we think that's crap, because there's no music as good as the music that was when we were growing up.
Yeah.
Which is true. Every generation feels that way about their music because it's a soundtrack to your identity. So of course it's the best out there. And then every set of parents has amnesia and forgets that's exactly how they felt. And their kids are living out the same exact pattern they lived, and they become their parents. They start yelling at their kids about their music. And they're like, oh my God, I'm my father.
That's funny. We talked a little bit earlier about, I picked up guitar. I didn't really play guitar so much as I just kind of beat on it,
Yeah, man.
But when I was a teenager, and I haven't picked it up with like that kind of imagination and fervor, in decades, because I'm kind of an old guy. And like you said, everything else, career has come and a family has come and all this other stuff gets in the way. And it's interesting. I do still really, really enjoy listening to music and going to concerts, even though all my concerts are canceled this summer. But I totally get that. And to experience, when we go and see my favorite band, I tell my wife, I walk out of there with a huge smile on my face. And I tell her that just makes me smile. It makes me happy.
Yeah, that connection you feel is like and what's happening in your brain, the chemicals that are being released are very powerful primal chemicals. And what people should understand about music is throughout human history, it's used as social glue. So as organism, we grow up in groups, in community. And so we have to get along. And the thing that's helped us resolve our problems and smooth over all the issues is the weekly jam. It's the dance party. It's when we would all get together and dance and sing. And there were no spectators. Everybody did it. And we felt one, we felt connected. We released all this energy, this pent up frustrations and aggravations by moving to the music. That's why it's more fun to be at a concert. The louder the noise, the more the brain releases the pleasure chemicals, which is why we like loud music. And so since the tens of thousands of years, we have all gathered inside of music. And the same part of the brain, when we eat chocolate, which is sugar, and we're sugar burners, and have sex, the same part of the brain releases the same chemical when we listen to the music we enjoy. That's primal, right? So we've got procreation, food, nourishment, and social glue. And that's how we've survived on this planet as a species. And so music is an integral part of the human experience. You're wired to be musical. And so as adults, we just kind of drift away from it. And as teens, we couldn't live without it. And so one of the things I always try to encourage, because I'm always talking to adults at conferences and at workshops and working with companies, I'm like, listen, you need to just tap back in to that feeling you had. God invented headphones for a reason. So you don't have to listen to anyone else's music and they don't have to listen to yours. But I want you to put down the audiobooks and the talk radio. And I want you to pick up your music again and become a fan again. Because when you reconnect with that feeling of being a fan, man, there's nothing like that.
Yeah, it's a great message, and really love what you're doing, Tim. I like the way that you're reaching out and trying to help the healthcare workers. Everything you're doing is coming from the heart and it's genuine from you, and that shines, dude. That shines.
Thanks.
Look, I know we're short on time here, and before I let you go, though, I have a couple more Proust questionnaire questions for you. Now, you played along with me last time, so you're familiar with a couple of these questions, which is why I'm throwing you a curveball by having come up with my own Proust questionnaire here. Just a couple of questions for you that will help us to understand your true nature.
Okay.
By the way you answer these questions. All right, here we go. Real quick. What is the last thing you experienced that made you laugh out loud or cry?
Well, I'm like 8 years old mentally. So today I was watching Facebook, somehow a video came up that caught my eye. And two guys they're playing tennis with with masks on, which is funny in and of itself. But there's like a press release. There's a woman doing this press release with these two men with like badges, baseball caps, and masks. And she's describing that there are going to be very specific rules. They've reopened the tennis courts, but there's very specific rules, and that family members can play with each other and use the same tennis balls. But if you're not family members, you cannot touch the other person's tennis balls. And then she goes, you can kick their balls, but you can't grab their balls.
Nice.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right? And immediately one of the guys just peels off camera. He just melts. He just disappears. And you're just like, did you? You did. Thank you. Thank you for that. I needed that today because I really am 8 on the inside.
That will be in the blooper reels for years to come. That's hysterical. All right. What is giving you hope right now?
What's giving me hope right now is that because I'm speaking on roughly 4 to 5 stages a week right now, I'm meeting a lot of amazing people. And I'm on equally the same number of discovery calls a week, meeting new people who, like me, through like a journey of their own experience and their expertise, all they're trying to do is figure out how to do the most good right now. And so I'm constantly in these hopeful conversations, generous conversations, heart-centered conversations on a daily basis. And I promise you, none of these people are ever going to be on the evening news, because that's not what sells, commercials for drugs. So we don't hear about it. And it's really easy. Like if you watch the news, that's like fast food for your brain. Like you're not going to get the same view of the world as if you decide there's some way you can do something. It doesn't have to be a big thing. I'm staying in my lane. I know music. I know the brain. I'm staying right in my lane with my healthcare workers to help them reduce their stress, help them stay sober, help them, get through this. When you declare that, everybody else who's like on that same plane of wanting to help and mission driven, they show up. And so it's just been, there's an army of good human beings that are working day in and day out behind the scenes to try to lift up their fellow human.
Beautiful. As are you, Tim.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate what you're doing. Listen, how can our listeners learn more about your podcast, Reduce Your Stress, and how you can help them?
Yeah. So if you're into podcasts, you know where you get your podcasts. Just type in the search bar, Reduce Your Stress with Tim Ringgold, and download the 4 episodes or however many there are by the time you hear this. And please, rate and review it. That helps us push it out into new and noteworthy, which then gets it out in front of more healthcare workers. Also, you can just go to my website to find more about me, and that's just timringgold.com with 2 G's. And when you get there, you'll see me right away. It's like, reach for music. Okay, I get it. But you'll see a question. It says, would you like to take a relaxation vacation?
Hell yeah.
Your answer should be, hell yeah, because you can't take any other kind of vacation right now. So you put your name and your email address in. You're going to download a very special 15-minute meditation or like experience, not so much a meditation, where using some slow tempo music, I'm going to slow you down, relax you, and I'm going to take you back to a memory of your choice where you were just on top of the world, having just one of the greatest mountaintop moments of your life, and then experience it like it's today. And then you're going to bring all those feelings right back here to the present moment, because this is where the stress is. It's in the present. So all we try to do is escape the present moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you escape to one of the best moments you've had. And I'm going to bring you back with all those feelings so you can better deal with the stress you're going through. So go check that out.
Awesome. Tim Ringgold, board certified music therapist, author, podcast host, all around model American. Man, thanks for sharing with us today and spending some time.
It's been so much fun, Rick. Let's do it again.
That's it for this episode of the Business Innovators Radio Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Brown. Until next time, keep innovating.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.